know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's one of the few days it's not too cold here in Toronto.
There you go. Yeah, it's
But
pretty nice here too.
yeah,
Yep.
well, yeah, it's summertime.
Yeah, it's about time.
Although we're gonna have a great show, by the way, because we got John Kirwin joining us from Wakeuporelse. Remember, we had him on for the
No,
Bible Mandela effects.
no, I don't remember
Oh, come on!
that at all.
Don't you
I'm
remember
pretty
the
sure.
Bible Mandela
I don't think.
effects?
I don't think his name was John though. I'm pretty sure it was
Well, maybe
Jack.
that could be a Mandela effect
I
itself.
think. I think there's something going on here.
Well, maybe we should bring John on and we can clear this all up.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, John.
That's funny. Where am I? Help me. Oh my gosh, it's almost true though. What you're saying. I have residual evidence from videos that I did 6 years ago where I have pictures of like Blue Letter Bible giving you the transliteration of words or different things, and they're now different. If you go to the same Blue Letter Bible, it's different now than what it is in my video because it's changed. I even have a disclaimer in my book that says these citations of these scriptures are entered on this date because by the time you read it, they might change. Because as I was editing it, I'm going back over it the third time, and now they're different. Some of them are different.
Now that's proof.
It's crazy town, man.
That's only if that's John, though. I'm still.
I guess you have to take me by faith, you know. Yeah. I am me ever since I was born. How's that?
Yeah, that's narrowing it down. Yeah.
God help us.
Well, so we're already talking a little bit about the Bible Mandela effects, but
yep.
What I didn't realize, John, since we had you on, we didn't also realize that you were a little seasoned guy too, right?
Yeah, you kind of get bounced around when you get into the rabbit holes. They become easier and easier to accept, and you're sort of looking under every rock. You know, you start turning over because you say, "Well, if that's not true, what else isn't true?" So I think for a lot of people, like if you're a normie Christian and you're approached with this topic, you're going to be a lot harder to convince than if you're a Christian truther and you've already kind of gotten ground down on reality. So you're the way I explain it is the more you see, the more you see. The more you see, the more your filters come off. So this one's a doozy though.
What, the little season?
Yeah, it's really tough for people to consider because it's so ingrained in church dogma and belief systems. You know, it's like any conspiracy theory, though. A lot of people resist them because they have to admit they've been duped. And the pride doesn't want to have to go there. So that's why a lot of times they'll have this kind of vitriolic response where they'll use anger to throw you off because your evidence is so compelling they can't really refute it. So their only option is to attack. That's why I wrote in my book, which is available for free, by the way. Both my books are available for free on Wakeuporelse.com. I have a chapter there called Why Normies Attack. That's kind of why, because they don't want you to go. Normies don't look. They're like the British guards that stand facing forward. They don't look under the bed. They don't want to know. They'll tell you that, right? They say, I don't know and I don't want to know because they don't want their happy life interrupted.
You know, I have to say, sometimes I wonder if those people are right, if that's not a better approach to life.
Well, now you're the guy in the Matrix who wanted to go back.
Yes, he is. He's having a meal with the what's the guy?
Yeah, I want to be like an actor. Yeah. And I know I'm eating this steak and I know it's not real, but yeah, it's good.
It's true, man. I say that too. My family's happy. My wife divorced me after 24 years of marriage. I was on my knees begging her, please don't do this. And she said, I don't want to be married to you. We're in two different worlds.
because of all the Bible Mandela effect stuff, right?
Well, the whole thing, I did a video called Help, I have more than 10 rabbit holes in my portfolio. Because once you get to about 10, you're insufferable for the normie. They can't deal with you anymore.
Yeah.
And some people will try to accuse me of, mishandling, and it's probably true, but not after 8 years. I've had probably 200 personal interactions with people who have gotten divorced because they found out the moon landing was fake, 9/11 was fake, the vax. I mean, you name it. It only takes one a lot of times, and then their marriages blow up. So, and then plus, I did cancel my channel twice. I deleted everything. I remember posting this sign, I'm canceling my channel for the sake of love. And I lasted about 2 months. And I told all my friends, I can't talk to you anymore. But then God showed me, hello, the Bible's changing. I need you to deal with this. So I told my wife, I said, I won't talk to you or the kids, but I'm going to go over here and make videos. And she was like, no. She wanted me to recant, basically. And I said, I wouldn't require that of you to be in relationships. And, I got a truckload of destiny that has been dumped on my doorstep by heaven. And so I'm going to have to say no. And that's when she asked me to leave.
Yeah.
I didn't leave. I was asked to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and this is going on all over the place. I mean, since the pandemic or the lockdowns, and divided people, families around this subject. And I mean, it's now here we are a couple of years afterwards, and it seems like it's gone away, but you don't have to go down very far to find that these points of division still persist and could rear their heads again if we were put to the wall again like we were.
I mean, some couples are able to navigate the waters, but I'm here to tell you, after 8 years, almost 10,000 subscribers, it's very few. The ones that are able to stay together have a chasm between them, and they just navigate it. And it's typically because the normie spouse has grace. Mm-hmm. But if it's a regular normie, it's tough. And, especially for me, because I'm Mach 5 with my hair on fire. I'm going to save the world. And that's really what the truther's algorithm is. You find out that the world is run by Luciferian blood-drinking psycho mobsters. Well, you can't sit still. You can't just do life like you used to. You all of a sudden go from living on a cruise liner to living on a battleship, but your spouse is still pursuing the happy life. The Beach Boys, fun seasons in the sun, play dates. It's just this mad rush of a happy life. And it can include God and stuff and family and all those values, but, it becomes really an insult. This is a perfect example. If you ever watch The Truman Show, he finds out he lives in a TV studio, right? Well, imagine if Truman said, well, what difference does it make? I still got to go to work. And he just puts his head down and he just continues to go to work knowing he's in a TV studio. Mm-hmm. No, you can't do it. You're done. When you find out the whole world system is a construct by evil people with bad intentions, you are done.
Well, I wouldn't say the whole world is a construct, because the earth itself is constructed by God, and there's still a beauty and that there, but the world system definitely.
Yes, yeah. Sure. That's a fair clarification, of course. Yeah, the narratives of the world, and that's one of the things I realized when I became a truther just recently. Really, is becoming a truther means that you no longer love the world. The normie loves the world. Christian normies love the world. And they can't understand you. What are you so worked up about? Why don't you just enjoy life? Well, like chemtrails is a perfect example. My wife is really worked up because I'm not totally invested in landscaping every Saturday. But I'm out there looking up at the skies as a father and a husband, knowing that they're spraying us with aluminum particulate and barium salts and who knows what else. And I have to ignore that. Well, now it's been proven that was true, right? Because Texas has banned them, or Tennessee has banned them. Florida is banning them. Texas has sent cease and desist orders to all the DARPA contractors. Now, one of the senators is passing a bill to ban it. So, and then the UK has come out and said they're doing it. And then you have RFK on Dr. Phil. Okay, so you got a lady stands up and says, "What about chemtrails?" This is what RFK said on Dr. Phil. So this is a senior member of the cabinet right now. He goes, "Yes, chemtrails are real. But we're not sure who's doing it. But we've assigned one person to go, fix that." And so that tells me, first of all, that chemtrails are real and that there is a shadow government. Because if the guy a senior cabinet member doesn't know who's doing it, that means there's a whole breakaway civilization that we've all been talking about, and now we're vindicated. But at the time, it was an incredible source of stress on the relationship, because you're trying to point these things out and you're just being called crazy. It's really tough on relations. That's why I wrote the book, the first book.
I just tend to not get, poke the bear. If somebody wants to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But there's people in my family, not everybody, quite a few of my siblings, etc., are awake, and my mom's pretty awake. And but I just don't go there. I just
sure. Yeah, a lot of people do that. Then a
yeah,
lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, I just kind of follow what Yeshua did, and he would speak to parables when it was the massive amount, and if you get it, you get it. If you don't,
right. But how far do you take that philosophy? Because when the vax came along, now you've got family members that are in the matrix, and then they're going to line up. Well, you have a moral obligation to stop them. So that argument doesn't go all the way into all these different issues. It's very complicated.
Doesn't. I did speak up, and it came to the point where I was not allowed to go to my dad's birthday.
Yeah.
Because he knew I was not going to wear a mask.
Yep.
Now, that's out of character for my dad. That's the thing, though.
Yeah.
But it was the person he was with, that lived in his house. And that's where and normally he wouldn't take a vax either. He's sort of like, well, I don't need any of that stuff. That's just how he always rolled. But because he was being, there was this other fear source in there. He took 4 shots.
Well, he was probably just trusting the science, Cal.
No,
yeah, he was.
No, he's not a trust the science guy. He's just like, nah, I don't need any of that.
Well, what do you think made him take the bite?
The person living in his house. She was like terrified. She kind of lives in a fear state all the time, and then COVID was just like put her over the top. But he almost died after the third. Came out and had another one, and then he got the same symptoms that put him in the hospital. And then I phoned him. I said, "Dad, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm not taking any more of that." And that I said, "That's all I need to hear." He finally got it.
Yeah, that one broke up a lot of families, because that one was real kinetic. It's not just a principle or philosophy or belief. It's something kinetic. Like the spouse would be like, "If you take that, I'm not getting in bed with you."
Yeah.
It was really a lot of people woke up from that.
It was very divisive.
Yep.
On the other side too, like you said, I will go to gatherings, and if I brought a friend, you need to ask him if he's jabbed. And I'm like, because they didn't want any jabbed people at the gathering, right? So,
yep,
it went both ways.
Yeah,
I just kind of live my life, based on the philosophy. If I drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt me. And if I got that resonating in my being, I don't care. Not that I don't care. I'm not being foolish, but I don't go into any kind of fear state about it.
Right. Well, I mean, you got to be like that now with the food. You've seen the videos of the watermelons, rubber. I saw a guy yesterday, he had whole wheat bread from Walmart, and he's under the faucet, squeezing it, and it just bounces right back like it's made of rubber under the faucet. And that's what we're eating.
Yeah.
So you got to be walking in the power of the Holy Spirit, man. You got to be believing God to sanctify your food and keep you healthy because.
Yep.
True. Anyway.
So today's show is going to be different than the last show we had with John, because the last time we talked, we focused pretty much on the Bible Mandela effects. But today we're going to focus on the little season. And for people watching that might not know what that is, what it is that because people that are into Bible prophecy think that we're coming up to the tribulation and we're going to have all that go on, right? But the little season is about the fact that we've already had the millennial reign of Christ, the 1,000 years, and then Satan was released for a little season, and we're in the middle of that. This is the idea. I guess it's called preterism or something. And and I'm surprised. First of all, I found it difficult to kind of accept this idea, or at least consider it, because I was kind of expecting the tribulation myself.
Yes.
But the more I looked at it, the more it started to make sense. And then Cal, I was kind of surprised when you kind of were saying, yeah, we could be in the little season too, right? Oh, yeah. So it was making sense to you, it seemed. And then John, then I found out after the last show we did that you're all about the little season too. I'm just curious, like, what was your journey to come to that realization?
It was really the evidence in the scriptures, which we'll look at. And, I have a very strict, conservative view of the Bible. Like I'm a Bible believer. And I believe there's two kinds of people in the world: people that believe the Bible and people that don't believe the Bible. So I'm offended by preterism because in order to be a preterist, in the formal sense, you have to basically spiritualize a lot of the book of Revelation and assume that it's not literal. And that's not me. So when I see God created Adam out of the dirt, I believe that literally happened. Okay, so unless the text gives me some indication that it's metaphorical, I always go to a literal translation. So if it says Jesus is the door, that's obviously metaphorical. But if it says Jesus wept, you can't twist that into some philosophical concept because there's no context and no indication that it's a metaphor, right? Jesus is the door is obviously Jesus isn't a door, right? So it's with that understanding that I approached this narrative when I started to hear about it. And the first question that really started me thinking was, do you believe historians and your denomination, or do you believe the words of Jesus? So with that, if I could share my screen,
yep,
I can go ahead and give some scriptural support to this. There we go. So this whole idea is based on what you find in Revelations 20. And I'll just go ahead and read this whole chapter, this paragraph. And when the 1,000 years are expired, so that means it's after the millennial reign, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Now, I've been in full-time ministry for about 10 years in Dave Wilkerson's church in New York. Then I've been in part-time ministry for 20 years as a worship leader in many different churches. And now I'm back in full-time ministry for almost 9 years. And what I'm saying is in all of those 40 years, I never heard anybody talk about this really weird scripture that's in our Bibles. Never was this addressed from the pulpit in 40 years. Mm-hmm. That after the millennial reign, Satan would be loosed. It's like there's a gag order on it, which is interesting. So according to this, and I remember reading it too as a new Christian. I'm like, why would you do that? You had him, Lord. You had him cast away, and now you're going to let him go out again. So after that period, Satan will be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations. Now that statement is really the only description of this period of time. In other words, all we're getting, if we are in this period of time, is that this period of time will be marked by deception. And so there's very little to go on eschatologically about what's coming next. We know that we're living in a time of deception according to this. He'll go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog. Then we find out that there's going to be a battle to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints. So you have deception, you have over the whole earth, then you have this battle of Gog and Magog that's discussed, and then you have this very weird mention of the camp of the saints. And there's all kinds of research that people have done on what that means. If we are in the millennial reign, where did Jesus and the saints go? Many people suggest that they're in this camp of the saints, which is like this floating pyramid in the North Pole. I mean, it really gets really wiggy. And the beloved city, and fire came down from out of heaven and devoured them, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. So this then is the close of the entire church age. Verse 20. Or chapter 20. And then we go into the white throne judgment, and there's nothing, the Bible's silent after that. So this is the very end of the end. All right, so the first thing that I do, and many Christians are going to do when we're confronted with such a volcanic denominational challenge or a doctrinal challenge, is I'm going to say, well, where is this in the scripture? So the first scripture that I was shown, which was pretty compelling, is Matthew 16:28. Now, again, these things were written for us, but not to us. He's speaking to people that are standing in front of him. And he's saying, verily, verily, I say unto you, there will be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Okay, now, going by my original premise, unless the text, the context, the underlying meaning, whatever hermeneutical rules you're going to apply to this, unless there's some indication that this is metaphorical or it doesn't really mean what it seems to clearly be saying, then I'm going to interpret it as what I call the clear testimony of Scripture. Okay? So to me, because remember, I'm a Bible believer, you've got Jesus telling people, there are people standing here which will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now, if you take that literally, what he's saying is there'll be people here that'll still be alive when I return. There's no way around it. Now, let me give you a recent experience I had that confirms that. I got onto a podcast where there was a couple of other people that were taking the other side of this. And this is kind of a side topic for me. My main thing is the Bible changes, providing a biblical analysis of the Mandela effect. But this one guy was super invested in this on the other side of this, right? And I was really tired. I was just listening for the majority of it. And finally, I got a chance to ask him this question here. Let me go back on the screen. I brought up this passage, Revelation 1:7. I said, let me ask you what you think this means, because it seems pretty clear to me. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye will see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. So again, there's no context that this means the state of Israel. There's no context that's clearly there to give me the impression that it's metaphorical. This is literal. And what is it saying? Jesus is going to come in the clouds, Every eye is going to see him when he comes. And guess who else is going to see him? Those that pierced him. Now, the only way that you can make that mean, well, he really means 2,000 years from now, is if you try to suggest that what this is saying, those that pierced him, means the state of Israel. The state put him on the cross and pierced him. But you've got to twist the scripture to get there, in my opinion. The clear testimony is the Roman soldiers that pierced him will still be alive when he returns. And I'll just stop there, because to me, what happened on that live stream is what convinced me. The guy that was invested in this was dancing around the answer for like 3 or 4 minutes. He kept saying, well, it says every eye will see him. I said, I know, I'm talking about the next part. And he kept avoiding the question. He used sophistry. And finally I said, look, I'm looking for a straight answer. This part, and they also which pierced him. That's the Roman soldiers. And this is what he said. Well, that's metaphorical. I said, that's all I need to hear. I'm good. He was unconvincing. Because I'm a Bible believer, okay? And if you're listening to me and you don't believe this is true and you're a Bible believer, then explain to me, the floor is yours, how does this not mean what it clearly says? Because I'm okay with having God come in and mess with my theology. He does it all the time. And this is a doozy. That's in your face right there.
Yep.
You guys want to take a crack at that? Maybe you have, a response to that, how this would mean something else than what it seems to clearly be saying.
We don't have any opposing voice here this week.
Okay, cool. I'm just putting it out there. Like, I'm not dogmatic about this. I'm open to hearing. But when I had the expert on that live stream, the expert didn't have any kind of answer.
No, I know.
And he was evasive, meaning he knew that this was really bad juju for him. I was not,
I have the same experience all the time. You have to ignore parts of the Bible in order to say that we're not in the little season. You literally have to just go, I don't want to look at that part. And so I usually put them, well, doesn't it say after? And the last time we talked on here, and there was a lot of jit-jat, and I said, that's, I might have overstepped my thing, but it was just words coming out that was not answering the direct question.
Exactly. Right. And this guy had all these really complex understanding of all these other arguments that you really couldn't prove. This is really black and white to me.
Yeah.
There's no wiggle room here. I mean, you either believe the Bible or you don't. And if you don't have any context hermeneutically to rightly divide this some other way, which he didn't, then I'm convinced that this is really the strongest evidence. Now, I have further evidence, which I'll present here. Like, for instance, if I can go back on the screen.
And just to that point, I saw somebody go, well, where's the camp of the saints?
See, that's a great point. I don't know. There's a lot of questions.
But what I can tell you is it's written in the Bible. And so you're just going, because I don't know where that is, I have to take that out of the Bible. That's what you basically have done there. Because you don't know where it is. The Bible is wrong in this point. So let's just leave Revelation 20 and move on back to
exactly. I'm sorry, but the fact that I don't know where the camp of the saints is doesn't erase Revelations 1:7 from my Bible. Right.
No.
You got to answer that first before we go to your question.
Right.
And I want to either hear you say, I don't have an answer, or give me an answer until I'm willing to answer your question. Because that's how it works. When your position is weak, you always go, well, what about this? What about this? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's take this one thing at a time. Right? That's tough, man. I mean, that's a tough one. So.
Okay, John, before you.
Boom.
Again, the big surprise.
Surprise.
Okay. So we're here with John Kirwin. We're talking about the little season. And before we get into it further, John, I just want to tell people who are watching that this is good news.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Right?
It is. Yeah.
Because if we're not in the little season, then we've got the tribulation to look forward to, which is no fun. Right. But if it's the little season, all that's in the past, and we're just close to the end, and it's going to be good, right? So,
yeah.
Well, we're close to the end. I still think there's bumpy stuff, but but the thing is, we are very close to the very, very end of all this nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Well, what it's done for me is it's given me a lot more ability to have hope, because we really don't have any solid eschatological timeline of what's coming. The only thing we have to go on is deception, Battle of Gog and Magog, and the camp of the saints. Well, my theory is that this golden age that Trump's been talking about is a possibility in our future if the tribulation is behind us. Because Satan can use prosperity as deception just as easily as, death and destruction.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So depending on what's going to unfold very soon, we'll find out, I think, fairly soon if we're going to go into total tyranny, which is probably, I would say that's the most probable thing. RFK's talking about having a wearable band on everybody, and there's a lot of funky stuff around AI that they implemented, but I don't know, man. It's just, there's no way to sort out what we're watching unfold.
Yeah. Okay, did you have another slide there you wanted
to start with? I want to show some more scriptural evidence. The immediacy scriptures are pretty compelling, because I've actually seen atheists debate Christians, and one of the things they pointed to was that the apostles didn't know what they were talking about, because according to the atheist, it was clear that the testimony of Scripture was the apostles believed that Jesus was coming in their lifetime. And he was drawing on these passages. Luke 12:40. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. We call these immediacy scriptures. James 5:8. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. See, if I tell you I'll be right back, and then I come back 2,000 years later, I'm a liar. Mm-hmm. I mean, words mean things. 1 Peter 4:7. The end of all things is near. Therefore be alert and sober-minded. So this is Peter telling his followers the end of all things is near. Well, that can't mean 2,000 years from now. Philippians 4:5. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Hebrews 10:37. For in just a little while, he who is coming will come, and he will not delay. There's more of these. Revelation 22:7. Behold, I'm coming soon. 22:12. Behold, I'm coming soon. 22:20. Surely I'm coming soon. So there's more of those as well. But when you see those and you realize that that's in your Bible, and somehow it sort of bounced off you. I mean, I never noticed Revelation 1:7 my whole Christian life. And that's how the central planners are masters at getting us to shut our brains off. It's really astonishing. And I think that they're doing that with this. But for whatever reason, whether it's God or whatever, the veil's being pulled back on humanity. I talk about that in my book. When you wake up after a lifetime of being a normie, it's not because you got smart all of a sudden. This is a spiritual awakening. This is grace. This is God sprinkling pixie dust on your head. He comes down, he says, all right, let's wake this one up, Gabriel. And, Gabriel slips some moon juice in your coffee, and all of a sudden you start asking questions,
It's borax. Really, that's what it's in the coffee. It's the borax.
The borax. So I'll tell you what, this one really ticks people off. This one is like, oh my gosh, this one makes Christians so mad because, they feel like they're ripped off because they don't get to be in the millennial reign. Well, you didn't bow your knee to the lordship of Jesus Christ to go to the millennial reign for 1,000 years. Your name's written in the Lamb's book of life, for the love of heaven. So Okay, so that's the scriptural evidence. There's a lot more. I mean, there's people that have dedicated their lives to researching this. I've watched 100 videos of other people, and it's a universe of research. But then we're introduced to empirical evidence that confirms that this has happened, because then, of course, you start asking the questions. Okay, well, if the millennial reign already happened, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that the millennial reign already happened? Well, the first evidence are what we call antiquitech, architectural anomalies all over the world. These are extremely advanced stone masonry and architecture that, of course, we never really noticed it. We never thought, well, how did they make this? And we certainly never researched it. But these are massive, intricate stone structures that are worldwide. They've been repurposed for office buildings, their cathedrals, their temples, fortresses. But they exhibit very, very, very advanced engineering and precision and very generous amount of art and invested in it, which you would have to have enormous resources and time to create these buildings. Well, what we start to learn when you start to look into this is that these buildings are built by people with extremely little resources in the 1800s with no power tools. And many of them are built with impossible timelines. Like when you look at the historical evidence, some of them, it says they're built in 2 or 3 years. One that I looked at, this massive cathedral, which I'll show you pictures of in a second. Well, let me just put up here things like this. You know, you see these types of buildings.
Where is that one?
I don't have any insight into where these are, but let's take this one, for instance. And they'll tell you, yeah, they built this in 5 years in the mid-1800s with no power tools, with workers that live in shacks. And you start going, no, I don't think so. And then what's really bizarre is if you go to the people like that really research this, like My Lunch Break or Understanding Conspiracy or JT Follows JC, those are the 3 people I look at for this. They will show you that the historical records tell you that many of these buildings were built by the same company in like the same amount of time, and then this is the narrative. There was a fire where it burned, and then there was an architectural contest, and then it was rebuilt. Now, I don't know why that theme keeps popping up, but you'll see that with all these different buildings. Almost it's like a cookie cutter history that they just insert into the history line to give some explanation for this. And
well,
when you,
why do they, it's like, why do they have to have the story where it burned and then we had to rebuild the thing? Doesn't that make it easier to fake the narrative?
Right, because I think they need to be able to suggest that it was built recently, because it was built in the millennial reign. It was built, maybe 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the architecture, I heard one mason, he was a stone mason. He's like, these round carvings are machined to the micron. I mean, I would have trouble creating these now, and they're not molds. These were carved. He's like, there's no way these people built these with stone tools. And then one guy showed this one building is supposedly built in like 2 years. And the quarry, according to the historical records, was like 300 miles away. And it used some unimaginable amount of marble, hundreds of thousands of pounds of marble. And he calculated it would have taken about 15 years if he had 20 ox carts going 24 hours a day. It would take 15 years to get all the marble. So they're lying to us, okay? That's the upshot of it. These buildings were not built in the time frames that they say with no power tools, okay? Then what you start to find out is you see how it's very barren. There's very few people walking in the streets. And when you zoom in on the people, you'll see that they're actually fake. And then when you zoom in on the sky, they call it vanilla sky, you'll find that the sky has been edited because they had a lot of airships back then that they've gotten rid of. And so what you see is a large amount of fakery with these pictures because they have to reframe the timelines and make you believe that this is just from the 1800s. So they put, horse and carriage in there and people, but many of these pictures, you see that there's basically no people. And then all of them have these spires on the top. You'll see the spires. Well, that's 0 point energy. All of them had 0 point energy, and they were, powered by ether. Yeah. And the dirigibles would fly up and repower and all that. I mean, it was breaking the illusion that our technological advancement has been linear. The years behind us, they had much more advanced technology. And then there was a reset. Now, that's the second proof thing, is there was some sort of cataclysm to bring this new reset. Because all over the world, you see evidence of what we call melted buildings. These are not just ruins. These are melted ruins. If you go in and study the evidence around the melted buildings, these are not just ruins carved into the side of a mountain. These are melted buildings. And they're all over the world. They're not just one or two locations. And so this introduces the fact that this reset took place on a worldwide scale that's unimaginable. Some people suggest that it's when Satan was loosed out of the abyss. It caused a liquefaction of the earth and melted buildings, and then there was this mud flood. So this is also what you see all over the world, is you see evidence of a massive mud flood, which we can't even imagine. But then everywhere you go, you'll see that cities are built on top of other cities because they were all mudded over. See, this is all buildings underneath the buildings. And this is worldwide, too. So you'll see this all over. See how the windows on the bottom are halfway up? So the sidewalk is built. Who would do that? You wouldn't build a floor down halfway into the sidewalk like that. And you see that all over the place because they had to build on top of the other cities. Mm. And the historians will try to say that, well, these villages covered up their own villages as a ceremony. No, it's not, because then it would be a mound, but the entire ground is flat for miles around, and then the city is under the mud. So they're not going to cover their city. It was some sort of a massive worldwide mud flood and melted buildings. And then when you start to research this, you start to find out about the World's Fairs and the orphan trains. So there was a mass relocation. Orphan trains in the 19th and 20th centuries relocated large numbers of children across the U.S. And these children may have been remnants of a wiped out population raised in controlled environments to repopulate certain areas. And then you had foundling hospitals. These facilities were widespread and housed vast numbers of children, suggesting a social reset. So this is the evidence, okay, that the millennial reign did happen. And then at the end of the millennial reign, anybody that didn't go along with the new narratives of a round Earth and NASA and space and all of this stuff is because we're in this period of deception, was shuffled off to insane asylums. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Orphan train evidence. Here's pictures of orphan trains.
John, yes, heard about the cabbage? There's something to do with cabbage patch kids. We know that is like a toy or whatever, but
yes,
wasn't there a phenomenon about and these orphans or something came from. I don't know, how did that work with the Cabbage
Yeah,
Patch?
I got some clips for you coming up here on that. So I'll touch on it.
Okay.
So what he's referring to is in these world fairs, these are unexplainable because you have this incredibly advanced architecture that they say was thrown up temporary, like cardboard or plasterboard, and they threw these buildings together. Do these look like buildings that were thrown together to have a World's Fair? I mean, come on. What, are you just born yesterday? You just got off the turnip truck?
Cabbage Patch truck.
Look at these buildings. These are the World's Fair buildings that they say were temporary. No, they're reframing history to make you believe that these buildings that were built during the millennium reign were just built for these events, and then they were torn down. So in the World's Fair, you see these really bizarre baby incubators with living babies. See, right up here? Baby incubators with living babies. And this was where all these babies were just sold like a property to all the people to go out and repopulate the different parts of the world. So just pretend for a second that everything you've known about American history and world history is completely wrong. The pioneers going west to, tame the land. Oh, forget it. All of it's fake. All you know is what was in the history books, and you have no idea how powerful and able the central planners are. They are masters of illusion. I mean, look at what they've done with NASA, making most of the population believe that we landed on the moon and ISS is real. They pulled that off. It's unbelievable. Okay, here's a picture. It says incubators with living babies. And I think that's a price for them, $20. Here's an article, babies sent to the incubator from all parts of the country. So this happened. And none of us knew about it. I didn't know about any of this. This freaked me out when I saw this, but it gets worse. Hugh asked the question about Cabbage Patch Kids. Well, there's all these postcards, most of them from France, where they're pictured here. You see babies pictured in cabbage patches. Mm. Now, what this is insinuating is that these are homunculi. A homunculus is a really demonic ritual where they take male sperm and I forget what else they combine it with, and then the ritual, and they basically make a small human out of it. So I don't know, why would they put babies into cabbage patches as a background? I don't know, but that's one theory. We don't really know. But it would really stink to know that this was your ancestors. That would really stink to find out your great-great-grandfather was a homunculi. Anyway, here's more of these postcards where they're basically selling babies. Here they are, delivering the babies. I mean, this will rock your world, man. Babies. I can't read French, but I've seen some of these in English, and they're literally saying babies for sale.
Are those cabbage? Is that a cabbage?
Yeah, that's Cabbage Patch. I mean, I'd hate for that to be true. Now, there is a scripture, I'll pull it up here in a second, in the book of Revelation, in this 20th chapter, that talks about the second resurrection. And it's a very mysterious passage. I've looked at the commentaries. They dance around it. So one of the theories is this. Okay, so, and we can't really support this. We're just spitballing here, right? Yeah. That God sent Jesus down. He preached captivity to the captives, right? And I think it's in 1 Peter it says that. And what the narrative is that God allowed everybody that lived before Christ to be reborn into a new body and give them the chance to choose Christ or not. Now that sounds like it goes against it is destined for man to die once in judgment. But I'm here to tell you the Bible doesn't tell you everything. You can't really necessarily make a doctrine out of that one passage that couldn't happen. Because you have this very bizarre scripture about the second resurrection. So if that's true, God, in this narrative, God has taken all the people that lived before Christ and gave them another chance to live and then choose Christ or not, so that all men are without excuse. I'm not saying I even believe that. I'm just telling you some of the things that are trying to, make sense out of what's on the screen here, because this is really bizarre. All these Cabbage Patch Kids. It's not just one or two. It's like all of them are pictured in the cabbage. What the heck am I looking at, right? So,
just a little interjection here.
Yep.
My mom's mom was French Canadian, and so my mom used to sometimes, when I was a little kid, she'd call me mon petit chou, which means my little cabbage.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, see, the buildings is what really got me,
because
I mean, it's very easy to see that they're lying to us about the buildings. Okay, so if they're lying about the buildings and the timeline, because then what you find too is you'll see pictures. I don't have any here, but there'll be the picture of a building and it'll say 871. In other words, that's the year that it was built, and then the picture next to it, it's the same building, and it says 1871. So they basically came in and they changed all the years, and you have the same thing on coins. So my point is that there is a lot of empirical evidence to show that the millennial reign did happen, or at least it could have been. And basically what they did was they just branded the millennial reign as the Dark Ages. Think about it. They've told us all of our life that the Dark Ages was about 1,000 years, and it was a period of time when there's very little history records. It was just a lot of wars and plagues, and that's all we know. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Yep. So it's a massive cover-up. And the problem is that people can't believe that people could be that powerful and have that much control over society. That's the melting point in people's brains for this. But I'm here to tell you that the central planners are on a whole nother level. I mean, they're not really even human. I believe that they're reptilian. And they got advanced technology. I mean, we got no idea how far down the rabbit hole goes on this.
Well, it's interesting, just even if you think about architecture as a whole for a minute, right? We've seen, we got all the old buildings like the one you're showing there. But we've seen a huge architectural movement in the 20th century towards, this Bauhaus modernist function over aesthetics, right?
Yeah, right.
And we've seen people fighting hard to preserve some of the old buildings, and they get torn down anyways, and they get rebuilt. I just got one picture here, and it's like they're creating a whole new aesthetic in terms of cities and architecture from those old buildings where there's beautiful sculptures on it and the Antiquitech or whatever, to the modernist steel glass, kind of getting away from any kind of resemblance to nature. It's all anti-nature, right?
Yes.
And I'm just going to show this one picture here, because there's just so much emphasis on this new architecture, and a lot of the old stuff doesn't get preserved. And look at the damage that the wars have caused, have wiped out so much of, like, if you look at Germany,
oh yeah,
Europe, what was lost in the Second World War. And let me just show this here. This is a pretty good example of what we see happening. And this is Toronto, but there's everybody knows the hyper modernist City Hall of Toronto here under construction. But this other building is what they tore down to make way for this new stuff. So they're getting rid of this aesthetic and they're replacing it with this. And one wonders why such a big and seemingly irreversible architectural movement, because we're not really getting back to anything like the older building here that they're tearing down.
Right, and the architecture is really a rabbit hole in itself, because a lot of the researchers on this have shown that the buildings are all tuned harmonically to generate certain frequencies that heal the body. They have all the bells were removed because the bells also are extremely therapeutic for humans' DNA, and they're all built on ley lines. I mean, there's a lot of really sophisticated advanced technology that went into these structures. They weren't just aesthetically incredibly beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the buildings now are just boxy functional spaces that are not life-giving. These buildings were life-giving.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the engineering on it. Like, I was in construction, and I'm looking at some of this stuff, and you're telling me that you constructed this, you got that kind of clear span, and so what's in there holding this up, and how did you get it to the site, and how did you get it up that high? With a horse? No, you did not. And you know, there's that one building in London that where they counted how many pieces of glass were in it. They showed where the glass was being made, and they were still blowing. Like, they had 13 guys blowing. You had to do 400 pieces of glass a day blowing in order for it to be done in the timeline, they said.
Right.
And that's making the glass, transporting it, and installing it and sealing it. And I'm going, they didn't do that. I was a glazer. We can't do that today.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible. So, and then you've got to work, you know, because it was 8 months, you have to work through a winter.
Mm-hmm.
It was 8 months to build this whole structure.
Yep.
And it's like, and then they show the architectural drawings, and it looks like a 3-year-old did it, and there's no dimensions on it. It's just literally a sort of a thematic scheme, like you said, or schematic. And it was on a contest, and somebody won based on something they drew on a napkin. And it's like, you built that from this drawing? Like, that's it? You have no dimensions, no sizes. There's no steel, you know, apparently.
Yep.
It's all iron. Like, how did you do this?
Plus, a lot of those architects didn't have any formal training either.
No.
They naturally to
and get this, some of the architects that they claim did these things were doing multiple buildings at the same time with no communicate. Like, there's no cell phones.
Nope.
Like, how are you talking to the crew? And I've worked with architects on numerous things, and you have to have constant communication with an architect. Otherwise, the project stops.
Right.
And so there's no way that this happened. Or they're lying about what communications they had.
Yep.
And it's the same with the bills of exchange, when, you know, passing all this money around. And I'm like, when did you have time to go and collect this? And how did you get there? And if the guy wasn't there, what did you do? Went home and then tried it again like a week later? You got in a boat and went across the ocean. Oh, he's not here. Do you know when he's going to be back? No, he's actually out collecting bills himself. Like, it just didn't happen. It's a lie.
We're going to do a commercial break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to continue here. So hope everybody's having a great time listening and thinking about the little season. So we'll be right back. And
that's much softer landing. I like it.
It's nice to have that warning. You know, as we're talking about the architecture there, the one thing that kind of really got me thinking was the Palace of Versailles. and in particular about it was that there's no bathrooms.
No bathrooms, right?
And it's like, and they had the plumbing knowledge anyway, because they were able to create these, fountains and water sculptures and stuff like that, but no bathrooms. And the whole idea that kind of blows me away is that why no bathrooms? Because the people were changed apparently in the millennia. They weren't sort of coarse material people that had to go to the bathroom. They were somehow a different kind of, in a different state, that they didn't need to do that. And that's a pretty wild idea. John, is there, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. That's a very interesting tell that what we're saying has validity. The buildings don't add up. So apparently we're being lied to massively about our history. So we're not actually in the year 2025, or maybe in the year 1025 or something like that.
3035.
What's that?
3035. They've erased 1,000 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'd go the other way. So the idea that the millennial reign has already happened is not far-fetched at all, because we're showing you evidence that there's been a cover-up. They're lying to us about something, so it's certainly feasible to suggest that the millennial reign is what they're lying about. And the fact that we don't have answers to all the questions is not proof that it isn't happening.
Exactly.
There's no way to know everything. All right. But one of the things that people do ask about is this idea of the camp of the saints. And can we go in that direction? Because this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah. You have a slide?
I can bring up the passage of scripture that I'll reference here. Let me do that. Share screen and boom. Okay, so this is out of Revelation 16. And it says, now this is one of the things that also really pushed me over too, was the drying up of the Euphrates. That's being talked about openly now, that the Euphrates is drying up. And that coincides with the battle of Gog and Magog here in Revelation 16. The sixth angel poured out his bowl of the great river Euphrates, and its waters was dried up. Well, this is then going to talk about this battle of Gog and Magog. And that's happening. So this was the thing that really pushed me over. So that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. And it even says somewhere in here that there's a 2 million man army, and that's what China has now admitted they have. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast. For these are spirits of demons performing signs, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. So this is now talking about the battle of Gog and Magog, which is what is in front of us now if we're in this period of time. And now you've got a marker of the Euphrates drying off to confirm that we're in this time. And then it says, behold, I'm coming as a thief. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, lest he walks naked and they see his shame. And then it says in verse 16, and they gathered them together to the place called in Hebrew Armageddon, the great plain. Now, the biggest plain area in the world is Siberia. And what we're told is the magnetic North Pole is shifting. It's moving, and where it's going is to Siberia. Okay, so now follow me on this. The Camp of the Saints is potentially a real place. It's still here. And in other words, the saints didn't leave here and go to heaven. They stayed here, but they moved their operation up to the North Pole in a giant floating pyramid type city that's cloaked like that movie. What's the movie in Africa where they had that civilization and it was cloaked? It was like a superhero movie. I can't remember the name of it. And there's actually evidence of that where they show wind patterns, and the wind is just going around this large object And there's supposedly a giant magnetic mountain in the middle of the North Pole. Anyway, that thing is moving towards Siberia. So one of the narratives is that they are, if you're a flat earther, you believe you're under a dome and there is no space, right? So there's no solar system and all that. So they're faking Nibiru because there's a lot of evidence that Nibiru is coming into the area. But if I'm a flat earther, I don't believe in Nibiru coming into the area because I don't believe in outer space. That's just me. But just go with me on this, okay? So they're faking
Can we
Nibiru.
get back, John, though? If we go with you, is there a chance we can actually climb out of wherever we're going?
Oh, yes, you can. You can completely rebuke me when I get done. So Nibiru is the Anunnaki. So the narrative is every 23,000 years, the Nibiru is on this elliptical orbit, or it's 14,000 years or something. And that our solar system is actually a binary solar system where there's two suns. And so Nibiru has a sun, and it goes way out, and then this sun and the planet come way back in, and they cause incredible destruction on the earth, cataclysm and all that. And that's about to happen. Okay, that's the narrative. But the Anunnaki live on Nibiru, and they jump off there when they come into town, and they, come back in here and mine the gold and get us to, make us slaves, and all this stuff is going to happen. And then what they're going to do is they're going to use Project Bluebeam to trick the world into thinking that the camp of the saints, which is now floating down towards Siberia, literally, is actually Nibiru and the Anunnaki that are here to destroy the humans. And they're going to get the whole human race to fight against Jesus and the saints using Project Bluebeam, which I did a whole thing on, several live streams on Project Bluebeam, which is completely rigged out. But that narrative is very possible to play out when you look at like Psalms 2, the kings of the earth prepare themselves to go to get battle with the Lord. Then they have like space weapons that point out who are they fighting, right? So we know Project Bluebeam is real, and they have incredible holographic technology. One guy, there was a whistleblower, said you can actually touch the holograms. They have structure. So they could convince us.
Some say it was even 9/11 could have been that the planes were actually holographic projections.
Yep. They didn't look real. I mean, come on.
That there's some actual glitches.
Like when I saw it for the first time, you saw the broadcast of the plane going, it hits the building, and then you could see the cone, perfectly shaped cone, come out the other side of the building for about 2 seconds, and then it snaps back. And then they showed next to it two different commercial airliners that had bird hits, and the whole cone was crushed in from a bird hit. Mm-hmm. So how could the plane, which is basically made of aluminum, drive through tons of concrete and steel and come out the other side with the nose perfectly intact? It was totally fake. But what I just laid out, where the camp of the saints is actually real, because they had to go somewhere, and if they're still here, this is what I just laid out. Sounds like a science fiction movie, but it's actually quite probable.
So you're saying it's in the Arctic or the North Pole region?
It's in the North Pole, yeah.
So what does that have to do, though, with the fact that the magnetic pole is moving?
Well, because what the suggestion is that moving pole is actually the camp of the saints. It's going to float down into view, and it's going to become everybody's going to be able to see it, and that's where they're going to trigger the Project Bluebeam, and they're going to trick everybody into thinking that camp of the saints is actually Nibiru and the Anunnaki, and they're here to attack us, and they're going to get everybody to join into the battle of Gog and Magog against Jesus and the saints. Mm-hmm. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm here to tell you that the Bible is 20 times crazier than you ever imagined.
Yeah, there's all the stuff from Admiral Byrd, who supposedly went up there and um, up to the North Pole, and there's a bit of research on all this stuff. I stop at the buildings because the buildings, you can go to Chicago and go stick your hand on the building,
Yep.
and you should be able to glean from that there's a big lie, and the rest of it, yeah, you can go down those rabbit holes and it's probably true. It makes sense, but there's no way to prove it one way or the other than, we're seeing Aurora Borealis where it shouldn't be. So there's something going on in the north because there's something very magnetic going on, something energetic. When you look at Revelation 21, I think it is, or 22, there is a structure that comes down, and it's 12 by 12 by 12, whatever it is, and that's the throne of God. And when you look at when Lucifer said, "I will ascend to the sides of the north. I will put my throne above the stars of heaven. I will sit in the most high seat," and that's all sides of the north. So there's a lot of circumstantial dots that point towards this, that the theory has some merit. But if you just do the buildings themselves, you don't even have to do the mud. The buildings themselves, if you look at the architecture, there's no way that was built with horse and buggy and nails made out of from a blacksmith. Like it didn't happen.
Right. Yep, that's what got me, man. The buildings got me, and then the Euphrates River drying up.
Yep.
But actually, that was secondary. That was corroborating evidence. The evidence that got me was the two scriptures that I showed you. I can't get around them.
Nope.
I'm pinned down.
Yeah, the Euphrates puts all the other vials and everything else into perspective.
Yep.
Because it's a sixth. The next one is the final, where God comes down and the islands disappear and the sky rolls up. That's the next thing. So all these other things
already. We've had 6 of the vials have already been poured out.
The Euphrates is the 6th. Yeah.
Oh, here it is. It's Revelation 20, verse 9. And they marched across the broad expanse of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints. There you go. And the beloved city. So this is describing what I just tried to explain, where if this plays out here, who marched around the broad expanse of the earth and surrounded the whole world? Goes against the camp of the saints. But the fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who is so this is the battle of Gog and Magog. It's over like that.
Yeah.
But you do have this, apparently, you've got this camp of the saints marched across the broad expanse of the earth, and so it's surrounded the camp. So the camp of the saints is now on this broad expanse, or the Great Plain, which, if you look at geography, the largest plain on the earth is Siberia. So, and that's right in line with where the North Pole is shifting to. That's the theory. It's possible. It's so unbelievably crazy when you try to make this real. But that's my problem, is I'm waking up to how real the Bible is, and it's way wiggier than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
Way wiggier.
Well, just think about, I don't know if you guys saw that a couple of years ago, there was like an image of a city that appeared in the sky.
Yeah, in China, right?
Yeah.
Yup.
And then also I'm thinking about, because we've heard the stories of how, say, when the Europeans came to North America or even South Africa, that the local people couldn't see the ships. Like the ships were right there. They were big. They were just off the coast, but the local people weren't able to see it. And it kind of raises the idea that we may be living in, slightly different dimensions, and certain things can be seen and certain things can't be seen because the frequencies are just a little bit off.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly experiencing shifting timelines with the Mandela effect. I mean, we can't explain what we're experiencing, but it's something new to humanity because all of my life we never had shifting timelines and hundreds of things in our reality that are different than the way we vividly remember them. So, but you know, the Project Bluebeam thing is really makes this all feasible that they could actually pull this off, because Project Bluebeam was actually a RAND corporation and a UN collaboration. And it was this whole document that they have this whole plan to use these advanced technologies of holograms. And then if you've ever heard of voice to skull technology, they actually used it in the Gulf War where they beamed Allah telling the guys to surrender. And it actually worked to some degree. They all ran and surrendered because they beamed the voice of Allah into their heads. And actually, I was in Myrtle Beach with my kids, and I played this game in the Upside Down house. It was a dome, and inside it looked like a little football field, right, or a soccer field, and there was a ping pong ball inside, and you put these bands on your head, and then just by thinking, you would move the ball. Now, that's 50-year-old technology. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in this analysis that this guy has, he got a hold of the documents of this document, the Project Bluebeam document. And the plan is that they're going to stage an alien invasion to bring total chaos to the world. And then they're going to show the particular God that's consistent with that area of the world. So Jesus over America, Buddha over India, whatever. I don't know how they're going to do that because India has 200 million gods, right? But then, but this is what it says. And then and then while they're showing you these holograms, they're going to be beaming the voice of the God into your head, where you'll literally hear Jesus telling you something like this. My child, Hugh, my son, all of the world's religions have led us astray and caused all of the wars and suffering. And the true religion is this one world religion. And then all of the gods will merge into one. I kid you not. This is what's in the Project Bluebeam. And it's going to be so realistic. And you'll hear God, Jesus will be telling you right while you're looking at him, that like unless you're a truther, you're going to be duped. A lot of people will be duped. And then they'll get everybody then to go believe that the camp of the saints is actually the Anunnaki because Nibiru's in town and we got to go defend the earth against the enemy of God, and they'll actually be fighting against Jesus. It's unbelievable.
But we know how that turns out, though, right?
It doesn't go well
No.
for the people fighting him. But you could get tricked because you're in normie land. You're bewitched. You're under the spell, and you mock us, and you look down your nose at the truther because you're so rational, right? And you're so like normal and all crazy people. No, it's backwards. That's the crazy people calling the sane people crazy. Okay, you need to come over to reality where all the pain is, like you talked about Cypher in that meeting. The pain got to Cypher, and he was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. Just put me back in. I don't care if it's fake. No, that's an integrity issue. Okay, the reason you're a normie is because you have a lack of integrity, because you can't prioritize truth over the painful reality, because that's what we found out. The moon landing is fake. Well, that means that NASA and the governments are lying. I can't accept that. You're crazy. Well, I'm sorry about your problems. I'm sorry truth makes you mad. I happen to love the truth. So I'm willing to lose everything, which I basically have, and follow the truth. So
well,
that's us.
You know what they say? It's easier to fool somebody than to convince them that they've been fooled.
Yep.
Okay.
It's no joke, though, man. This is a lonely path. I mean, if you're a truther, you are walking a lonely road. You got people in your life that were family, lifelong friends, workmates, church, especially kids, and they do not talk to you. at all. You are alone. And I'm talking to most people that are listening.
That's the bad news. The good news is we're already through 6 of those vials.
Yes.
We don't have to go through the tribulation.
Yeah, right.
We
Look
don't
at
have
the
to
bright
worry
side.
the rapture. So
that's a great point.
Okay, so let's take our last, and we're back. Okay,
Yes.
so this is good news. So we don't have to worry about the tribulation. That's all in the past, right? The 6 seals are already out. I mean, what else has you know? There are other signs in Revelation, stuff like that too. But so what do we have to look forward to then? I mean, what do you think it's going to look like?
Well, what will throw you off is I think that the power structure is trying to make everybody believe we're going to the tribulation. So they're faking a tribulation coming, like with the mark of the beast is something a lot of people are pointing to being about to be implemented with, you know, Elon's brain implant and whatever.
And that sounds pretty viable too. Like it's hard to, if that's not the mark of the beast, then what is it?
Well, if we're correct, then the mark of the beast has already happened. The Antichrist has already been here. The tribulation's already happened, and the mud floods and the melted buildings are the evidence of that. By the way, that's why the mud flood and the evidence is there's evidence for the tribulation and all the judgments and everything. There's unanswered questions there, but we're just, you know, we got too much information to say no to it anymore.
So we can go ahead and take those vaccines and not worry about.
Well, no, you don't want to go there. But what I'm saying is it's going to be difficult to reconcile this with what you're being shown because they're trying to trick you into thinking that the tribulation's coming, which makes total sense. Because if they can convince you that you go through 7 years of tribulation and there's never a rapture, a lot of people are going to lose their faith. So this is why it's important to be a truther, because you can see through what they're presenting and know what's going on.
Yeah, they want people to lose their faith because they want to create the new one world religion, which is, and Christianity does not support that at all. So they have to create that. That's why the ecumenical movement is so big, and they're because that's the kind of world that they want to create.
Right. So a lot of us truthers, Christian truthers, are, you know, really baffled by what I call the Trump show. Can we talk about that?
Yes.
All right, because it's obviously in our faces. It's affecting us, and we can't, you know, there's a lot of people on both sides of the belief system. And I've watched the white hat scenario for 8 years. And back then, things like Nasera Gesera were a ridiculous New Age pipe dream. They're going to eliminate the IRS, and they're going to forgive all debts, and they're going to give us back all their money. Well, now eliminating the IRS is being openly talked about. And many of the things, the quantum financial system is, I've confirmed it's real. I have documents from the OCC that it's real. So it's a real struggle to try to figure out what's going on because there is now mountains of information or evidence to show that the white hat scenario is real. Now, that's not to say that it isn't a false light narrative, but let's keep in mind that if it is a false light narrative, it's still a false light narrative, meaning Satan may take us into a period of prosperity for a time. I actually have a message I'm working on is the blessings of Satan in the golden age. And actually you can find scriptural basis for that in the prophecies that Satan will use prosperity to bless and to trick the world, right? He's going to bring peace, right, to the world. Well, we're watching that happen. And so it's very difficult to know if the white hat scenario is actually white or is it a false light narrative? At this point, it's really leaning towards a false light narrative in a big way.
Well, that's what we have. Our pal Enoch talks about the that it's a Masonic thing, and you've got the black and you got the white.
Yeah,
the black hat Masonic agenda, and then you got the white hat. So,
yep.
And I can see that when they're talking about AI and robotics and that sort of thing, that could certainly lead to prosperity. But but people won't have to work. There's not going to be any jobs, so they'll create this virtual world where people can spend most of their time and live their lives happily ever after, as long as they do whatever the government tells them to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. RFK wants you to have a wearable. Who knows? To put us in 15-minute cities. They're building a 500-mile line in Saudi Arabia. You see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I think we have a very slim chance of living in some sort of golden age where you're actually free. And I think there's a very good possibility that there is a golden age coming, but it's not going to be good for Christians, for instance. You'll probably have a social credit score. That's what RFK and I think Elon are battling. There's no question that the people that are on the world stage, like Trump, his wife, they're all wearing masks. They're all body doubles. And the real issue is, are they elite gender inverted or are they reptilian? There's a lot of video evidence that a lot of people in and around Trump have snake eyes, and their hands, they'll be standing there and all of a sudden their hands will be like really long like this with claws, and then they'll go back. So the shapeshifters are there in and around Trump, which doesn't bode well if you're thinking that they might be white hats trying to, put a republic back together. But not if they're reptilians.
Okay, so but the Euphrates dried up. The battle of Gog and Magog is before us. So, I mean, how could this kind of fake utopia even happen?
Well, because we don't know the timeline of when the Battle of Gog and Magog actually happens. It could be 50 years from now. We have no eschatological timeline to gauge how long it's going to be. Trump is definitely, the Trump show, I call it, is definitely seems to be going around the world and stomping out wars and stuff. He's definitely rolling prosperity in like a monkey. I mean, the stuff that he's putting in place with the tariffs and all these deals, $10 trillion in new investment in the first month. You can't deny it. But, most of us believe it's just a big cage he's building around us for the true believers. Like you said, in order to keep living, you'll have to be towing the line, and Christians won't do that.
Cal, what do you think?
Well, I agree. Yeshua said, in the end, there'll be wars and rumors of wars. Like, you won't know what is going on. But he also said, don't fret.
Yes.
It has to be this way for whatever reason. And I don't have to come up with a reason. I'm trusting what he said. There is a reason. I can't tell you what it is, but don't worry. It's all good.
Yeah.
So I just go, yeah, well, could be a war, could be a rumor of war. It could be this, could be that. And that's how it's supposed to be. But I'm gonna trust in God directly, and that's it. And I trust the Bible, even though there's been changes in it. It doesn't matter to me. The timelines and all these things. There's still the Word of God is in that Bible, and there's enough breadcrumbs that you can hang on to. You go, okay, I trust this. I see where this is going. And that's, being in the little season helps you to really ground yourself in this, knowing that, okay, this is temporary. It's a little season. It's short.
Yes.
It's intense, but it's short. This is his last go around, his last appeal in the big overall case, and we're coming to the judgment.
Yep.
He's blowing it again. He's doing the exact same things he's always done, and it's going to culminate with, let's try and shoot God out of the sky, and it's just going to be like and so I'm hopeful. I'm excited to watch all this.
No doubt.
And I want to participate in it because I know there's a case running. And it seems like Adam was put here as the medium of it, the subject matter, and we have to be engaged and put forth our part into that court case. And at a certain point, boom, it's over.
Take it.
And we move on. Like this old claim from Lucifer and third of the angels is now adjudicated, done. Mm-hmm. No more appeals.
That's it. No getting out again after this one.
Nope.
That's a good word.
Final judgment. There's already been a judgment, and he was locked up for 1,000 years. Appeal. I need one more shot. This is it.
Right.
But we can't just stand by and watch it, right? No, we actually have to participate.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, we need to be, if you're here at this time, you need to participate. You need to understand what's going on as much as you can. And that's why, you don't have to get into the Cabbage Patch and the mud floods or the melted buildings. These are all, you can go and search all that. Mm-hmm. But the buildings themselves in North America show a very large lie. And that should make you go, okay, if the lie is this big, mm-hmm. why are they lying about it? Why lie about the buildings? Why? They're there. Mm-hmm. You're lying about something, and the lie is big. So what is it you really are trying to hide? Tartaria? No. Right. Who cares?
Right.
There was a thing called Tartaria. Okay, there you go. No, they don't want you to. They want you to believe something that is not true. They want to remove an actual period of time. That's what they're trying to do. And why? The only thing that makes sense is that Christ was here, and they don't want you to know about that.
It seems impossible that they could cover up the millennial reign, but it isn't really that impossible, especially since most of the people in this narrative believe that the millennial reign ended fairly recently, like in the 1700s. And so what they did, according to the people who researched it, is they basically had a litmus test. You're either going to toe the line or you're going to go into an insane asylum. And they just warehoused everybody that wouldn't go along with it. And then they repopulated with all the babies.
Well, so when you look at other scriptures, like, the dead in Christ will rise first, then us who remain will be caught up and will be forever with the Lord. And then in Revelation 20, it goes, this was the first resurrection. So I'm going, mm-hmm. Okay, there's the resurrection. The dead in Christ will rise first. Then we which remain will be caught up together with him.
Right.
That's already happened.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. What I hear a lot of people say when we cover this, I've done about 5 or 6 live streams on this now, is what they always say is, this makes total sense now to me. This makes so many things that I've seen in the Word and in the world make total sense. Thank you. So what you just said is really a great finishing point here, is if you look at this and then you go back into the Word, you're going to see things in the Word that make total sense, like the proof texts is a great example. Revelation 1:7 doesn't make sense if you're in the futurist view, because Jesus is not going to lie to you and say, hey, there's people standing here that'll still be here when I come back. He's a liar. So that's a profound point to end with right there, is that this helps you make more sense of the Bible and the world events.
So what is that first resurrection? Or Cal,
that's when all the people disappeared. And
the Cabbage Patch Kids came?
They repopulated. It's a reset.
So they were the resurrected, like all those kids?
It's hard to say, because like John said, you look at some of the photos and there's no people here. Well, who built these buildings and where are they? Why are these cities empty? the people disappeared for like there was something happened. When you look at it, and when you look at the Revelation 20, it says that was the first resurrection. So that means there's two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you think about it, I'm just thinking live here, is that if people were different in the millennial, like they didn't need to go to the bathroom, they were a more refined kind of body or something like that, well, then it wouldn't make sense that those people would be able to make the transition to the more fallen world where Satan was released, right? They wouldn't be cut out for that.
What's always bothered me ever since I, like young, was how do you go through the millennial reign and then he's able to come out and deceive those that just were with Christ? I went, like, how do you do that? And it's always been in the back of my mind. Like, that's like, how do you go from, Christ is here and everything's great, and then I somehow switched to this?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now it all makes sense. There was a reset. Well, I never thought of that.
Right.
And it's interesting too that we've all witnessed in our lifetimes sort of the decline of Christian values in the West, right? From when I was a kid to where we are now, right? It's been such a change from those traditional Christian values to this increasingly, I don't know what you want to call it, but so I guess we don't know the answers to this, but so in this little season, obviously there's been a lot of effort put into doing that, to taking humanity away from,
because that is the overall case that's before the Most High, who's God. And so Lucifer goes in the very beginning when Adam was put here, eat the fruit. There it is on a small scale, just two people, eat the fruit. There it is. So it's all about getting, the DNA of Adam to not follow God and follow anything else, really. And that's what the whole thing is about. When you look at Job, that's the subject matter of the case when Satan shows up in court. They don't talk about what Satan's doing or not doing. What is Job going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Let me take his stuff and he will curse you to your face. See, there it is. I will make him curse you to your face.
That's a great point.
And that's the case that's being about to be adjudicated. We're now in an appeal situation. If you look, just judging by how appeals work here, there was a judgment. He was locked up. And then when you appeal after a judgment and you're locked up, they set you free.
Yep.
In most cases, like unless it's something, heinous, but until your appeal is done, then they put you right back in jail.
Yeah. And it certainly does seem like that little interaction in Job chapter 1, God is the one that initiates the conversation about Job. So it appears as though there was a running narrative between Satan and God, where there was a tat for tat, like, God has this, I don't want to say a chip on his shoulder, but apparently he had a running narrative about the fact that men will serve him for who he is, even if things aren't all lining up for them. Exactly. And Satan was playing on that. And God said, where you been? Oh, running around. And he's like, well, have you checked out Job? He brought Job into the conversation, not the other way around.
Yes.
That's intense.
And he asks where he is, which is a rhetorical question, if it's God.
Yes.
And the answer is, I've been walking back. I've been in the earth, clothed in, not on the earth, walking back and forth in it. He's remanded pending trial. This is
totally
a prison.
Intense.
Yeah. And we were introduced here after the fact in Genesis 1:26, because there's a conversation. There's 5 days of God said it. It was good. No consultation. Day 6, talks to somebody, and we've been told he talks to himself. It's it's the Trinity talking to himself, and I was always taught that. And then after I saw the Job thing, I went, hang on a second here, he could be talking to Satan right here, and it all started to fit.
Yeah.
So there was an agreement. Let's make man in our image and in our likeness, and give them dominion over the three realms in earth. So God put himself here. This is the way we're going to settle this. Man is going to be the subject matter and the judge, and everything. He put everything on the line in this thing called Adam, a piece of dirt that he blew into, put his essence into. So, and when you look at the word image and likeness in the original, one of them is more like shape, and the other is instead, agent for.
What does that mean?
That means I'm making Adam in my stead. He's going to act on my behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get me in that state to follow you, then you're a God. And that's the overall case here. And so we're at the end of this, and it's an exciting time to be alive if you kind of catch on.
No doubt.
So we have this war of Gog and Magog to look forward to. The kings of the East will march across the Euphrates.
But when that happens, it's an instantaneous. That's when the sky rolls back and all the stuff that you see at the very end, and that hasn't happened yet. But
and then what
happens? The city comes down, and that's when God actually sets his throne up in earth.
New heaven and a new earth.
New earth, yep.
So I guess it would be somewhat like the millennial reign.
I agree.
It won't be for a period. It will be the whole, like, that's it. We've moved on past that case. The case is now closed.
Yeah. It's the end of the church age.
The end of all the whole age, like the whole reason why earth is even here.
So this is, I mean, you guys have heard about the, and this could be related to the mud floods and stuff like that, but that there's a periodic cataclysm that comes on the planet. I mean, you got to go back to that kind of cosmology again, but, and people like Archaics are saying that this is, like, he's worked out the dates. It's going to be in 2040 or something like that. So is that just a red herring to get people confused, or?
It's hard to say whether we've been around this numerous times, because that's not clear in the Bible. But for this period, that's what the Bible's here to give us the breadcrumbs for that. What happens after that? It says, forever. There's no sickness. There's no tears. There's like. We go back to the very beginning before Lucifer went, I think I want to be God, which threw a glitch into the whole thing.
Yep. I'll just say one thing to listeners. Like, if you, I mean, I think we're pretty cogent. We're making sense here. And you're convinced this is true. I would not expect a warm welcome from your church leaders, because if you think about a guy that's written 2 books on the coming tribulation, he's going to be a hard sell. So just know that going in, that you're not going to be winning any popularity contests if you try to start talking this up at your church circles.
Well, I think about most mainstream churches, like, they're not preaching, they're not talking about, very rarely do they look at Revelation. They're not really talking about end times or that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like, Sunday here, read a couple of nice scripture pieces and have a great week. And a lot of people, because when I talk to a lot of people who are ostensibly Christians even, and I start to bring up some Bible quotes, they'll go, "Oh, the Bible is not necessarily literal. right?
Right.
It's a lot of metaphor. It's just, I basically, just a lot of that it's not, it can't be taken literally. And so a lot of people still kind of think about the Bible that way. They don't really, they're probably not reading it, and they're probably don't even know how to answer a lot of these questions that you're bringing up.
Pastors are some of the most normie dudes you'll ever meet. They are normied out to the max. They have drank the Kool-Aid, and they got more to lose than anybody. Because think about it. If you become a truther, you get persecuted. Well, they don't want any of that rock the boat stuff. So they're right there. They worship NASA, and they trust Fauci, and right down the line, baby. They lined up all their people to take the shot.
I guess it's people just trying to live a good life. They don't want to be confronted with the fact that the world could end tomorrow, and that might their RSP contributions.
Oh, it's true. It's true. I'm sorry to say, there's a lot. It's like the rich young ruler principle. That guy was devout, and he initiated the approach to Jesus. And he was like, Master, I've kept the commandments from my youth up. What do I lack? So he's pressing into the kingdom. So your pastor may be pressing into the kingdom. But the rich young ruler had this idol, and Jesus put his finger on it, and he was like, nah, that's the Bible. Supernatural Bible changes for sure. But almost any conspiracy, flat earth, fake moon landing, 9/11, you name it, they are the most normie dudes. They will blow up at you till you need medication. I've had tons of people in my community tell me their pastor told them they needed medication. Mine did. My wife and my pastor and the assistant pastor and the church mom had an intervention for me. I came home, they had this thing. I'm like, oh, you having a prayer meeting? No, John, you need to sit down. And they proceeded to tell me I needed medication. Wow. So join the club. Sorry about your problems.
Okay, well, listen, we're out of time, guys. But John, it's been great to have you back on the show. We'll have to get back again.
Anytime, man. Just reach out. This was a great combo. I really, really enjoyed it.
I don't remember him being on the show though. Before.
Maybe that was a different Cal.
Oh, that's what it was.
Maybe you're changed, Cal.
Could be.
We're dealing with the Cal from a different universe. That's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. And there's the two websites at the bottom, wakeuporelse.com for John's stuff and John's books, and of course empowermovement.org for where people can get started and take action to take it all back. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We'll be back next week for more here on.
Good to see you, Cal. God bless.
Yeah.
God bless, guys.
You too.
Bye, guys.
All right.